Hello and welcome to Macy Cooks. Today I'm going to teach you how to cook something that for a long time I was very intimidated by. It was one of those things that I just felt like was off limits, but then once I learned how easy it actually was, it opened up a whole world of recipes. Sandwiches, soups, sliders, enchiladas, tacos, the leftovers are unlimited. Today I'm going to teach you how to make a smoked pork butt. Now, before we get out to the grill, there's a few steps that you want to do ahead of time to yield the most delicious pork butt possible. Step one is brining. Now, the main reason that I recommend brining a pork butt is because through means of osmosis, when you add water and salt, that salt's going to go into the pork and infuse it. And that's going to yield a more juicy, more tender, and more flavorful pork butt. The longer that you brine, the better. Recommended is about 1 hour per pound, but I typically do mine overnight. And then tomorrow morning, I'll wake up, dry it out, and get it ready for the grill. In my opinion, the best thing for brining is this giant clear bucket with the high sides and the lid. I got it at a restaurant supply store years ago. If you don't have this, totally okay. There's a few other options. You could use a large stock pot with a lid, or if you don't have that, you could use a large bowl with plastic wrap or foil over the top. The most important thing is that you want the pork to be completely submerged in the water, and you also want to make sure that it's closed. You don't want to contaminate anything in your refrigerator. My very large jug, I've got about 10 liters of water. Now, what you want to do first is add some ACV to that, some apple cider vinegar. I've got about a cup here. During our smoking process, we're going to be spritzing it down with more apple cider vinegar, but I like to give it a little bit of that in the beginning. Then you're going to add several peppercorns. I usually get, 4 or 5, maybe 6, however many are in my hand, really. All right, and then you're going to want to add a good helping of kosher salt. I go a little bit nutty with this. You want it to be really salty. Now all we got to do is get the pork in there, and I'm going to give you a little tip. I always grab a grocery bag that I have left over, and I take the pork and I place it inside the grocery bag, and that way when I'm cutting open the wrapper, any juice or blood, gross stuff, whatever, will meander down into the bag and not on my counter, because the name of the game here is keep it sterile. Now that we've got it submerged in water, you're going to take your lid or your foil, plastic wrap, whatever it is you're using, seal it well, and then transfer it into the refrigerator overnight, or at least 8 hours is really what I shoot for. Isn't that visually striking? Okay, welcome back. It's been 12 hours. I've had my pork butt brining overnight in the refrigerator. Now the next step is you're going to want to pour all of this liquid out and then transfer your pork butt to a baking sheet or something that you'll be able to carry it to the grill on. We're going to pat it dry, and then we're going to do a thin layer of mustard all over the whole pork butt, and then a seasoning blend, which I'll tell you all a little more about. Now, there are a ton of great spice blends on the market, hundreds of them, thousands of them, some super different, some very similar. But this one is one that we came up with. It is very simple, but delicious, and it yields an awesome pork butt every time. And the awesome thing about it is the majority of the ingredients we use you probably already have in your pantry. This spice blend consists of a tablespoon of the following ingredients: smoked paprika, cumin, chili powder, garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper. I grind mine, but you probably already have ground pepper, and that's fine too. A tablespoon of salt, and then I use a half cup of brown sugar, and then a dash of cayenne pepper. And also in the past, we have ground up celery seeds and added that too, which was delicious. That may seem like a ton of brown sugar to you, but it is very necessary, especially with pork. Once we're done smoking this, it's going to have a really awesome bark on the outside, which we're gonna chop up, shred up, and mix in with the rest of the pork, and it makes the most delicious, succulent pork that you can use in a ton of different recipes. Now, before we do anything, let's make sure to dry off our pork butt a bit. I'm going to grab a paper towel and just kind of dab it off. We want to get as much of that residual moisture off of the outside. And because we let it brine overnight and due to osmosis, we have locked in flavor. We are promising that we will have a nice, succulent, juicy pork butt. Now that our pork is nice and dry, I'm gonna take some classic yellow mustard and smear it around the whole outside of the pork. This is going to serve as a tangy component to our recipe, but it also plays an important role of helping that dry spice rub adhere to the outside of the pork. Speaking of mustard, a lot of places with shredded pork, particularly like in Tennessee, they'll do a mustard sauce, a mop sauce when serving smoked pork butt, and we make a fabulous one. I plan to make a video of that too, and I'll link it to this video later once I get that shot. I'm about to get this all zhuzhed up with the seasoning, but I wanted to make a note. If you purchased a pork butt that has a large fat cap on the top, you don't need to remove that, and you really shouldn't, but you absolutely should score it. And I usually use a diamond pattern to do that. That just ensures that your seasoning and everything gets down into the meat and isn't blocked out by the shell of fat on top. Now, mine didn't have a fat cap on it. It had already been kind of cleaned up by the butcher, so we could skip that step. All right, I'm gonna begin by just sprinkling some of our spice blend over the top. This is kind of a little bit of a messy process, but it's gonna be fine. I have found one of the most helpful things to do is to put a hand out on the side and you sprinkle the seasoning into your hand and then press it up against the outside of the meat. Trying to run this camera with gloves on is funny. I almost shot a slow-mo video just then. That would have been super dramatic. Now that the pork is all seasoned up, we're gonna take it to the smoker. And an important thing to note here, I'm using a pellet smoker, and this is the pellets that I'm using this time are a combination pellet with several different varietals of wood. I typically try to go for a hickory or a pecan, but the combination's great too. Now, the smoking time is going to vary greatly. We're going for temperature, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take you all along and show you how the meat changes visually throughout the process and how the temperature is going. It will typically stall out somewhere during the process and we'll have to bump up the temperature of the smoker, but I'm starting it off at 225. I meant to say 250, not 225. It's fine. You may not even be able to hear me while I'm filming right now. We're in Wyoming. It's very windy today. Fortunately, our backyard's pretty blocked in, but I don't know, we'll see. But hey, at least we're in a new set, you know what I mean? Production value. You're going to add this pork butt all the way over to the left side, further away from the heat box. And now we just let it roll. We just let her roll on and do her thing. I'm gonna load up a squirt bottle with some ACV and we're gonna spray it throughout the process, which I will show you. And then in the end, we'll have a great reveal and try it out. It's gonna be great. I feel good about it. I'm adding some apple cider vinegar to this squirt bottle several times throughout the process, throughout the day. I'm gonna spray the pork down with the apple cider vinegar. Okay, so I have inserted a probe, which this girl has, into the center of the meat to get a good reading. I'm gonna switch over to my meat thermometer a little bit later on just to kind of hone in on the accurate reading, but as of right now, it is showing about 135, which means we are rapidly approaching the stall. Essentially, the stall occurs due to evaporative cooling. The moisture from the inside of a large piece of meat moves to the outside, and that moisture causes it to cool, making it to where it can't increase in temperature. Now, eventually this will level out if you let it continue to go low and slow, but there are some ways to kind of counteract the stall if you're in a pinch. You can wrap it, like with butcher paper, and keep it all wrapped up, and that will help to increase the temperature and kind of push through the stall. You can also wait it out, like I mentioned, and eventually the internal temperature will continue to rise and you'll push through. Or you can bump up the temperature of the smoker, which we've absolutely had to do, especially if we had people over and we were trying to feed hungry mouths, you know? But for today's purposes, because we're not starving and we got time, let's just let it ride. I'm gonna keep it going at 250, and as of right now, we're sitting at about 5 hours in with an internal temperature of around 135. All right, so we are at 140 now. I'm gonna give it a nice squirt with the apple cider vinegar. And then we're just gonna let it keep rolling. Approaching hour 6. So as you can tell by the lighting, we have crossed over into the dark times. We are at 161. We're getting there. We're shooting for 201. That's really our goal. And we are just at about 7.5 hours. Welcome back. It has been 13.5 hours since we put the pork butt on, and oh my gosh, is it gonna be worth it. Look at this. The bark on the outside is shiny and crusty and craggy, and I just know it's gonna taste delicious. But as much as I wanna cut into it right now, I have to be patient, and so do you, unfortunately. So I'm gonna loosely wrap it in foil and let it rest for about 30 minutes, or at least until it's cool enough to touch it without melting my fingerprints off. It's been 30 minutes and I really can't contain myself any longer, so we're just gonna break into it. We hope it's there, we'll see. I mean, it's pretty great. This is so juicy, look at that. Oh my gosh, I mean, obviously it's still ripping hot, but look at that bark. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to taste it. I am so proud of this. Look at the bark on it, guys. All right, only one thing left to do. Little victory dance, perfectly rendered fat. It just melts in your mouth the second that it lands on your tongue. The meat is tender and juicy and succulent, rich and indulgent. It's everything you want from a smoked pork butt.
Hold on, let me grab some.
Okay.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Okay, so to wrap it up with a little bow neatly, it went for 10 hours at around 250. And then it stalled out and I bumped it up to 275 and let it go for a couple hours. And then that last hour, I pushed it up to 300. And I really think that helped with the caramelization and the Maillard reaction. Now, the best thing about this pork, I mean, aside from the fact that it's delicious even by itself, is you can make it into so many different things. For example, my sour cream and green chili enchiladas, which I'm planning to release next week. Though the leftovers are delicious and they go with just about anything, my favorite way to eat it is just on a sandwich with barbecue sauce, a nice, fresh, crisp white onion, and a tender bun. However you choose to eat it, I just hope you make it. And if you do, let me know in the comments what you think. I had so much fun cooking with y'all today. Get baking.